Sunrise Daily, welcome to you live from Kaduna, where KADIPA 7.0 is holding. And as you see in that welcome slide, we've got Khalil now, who is the Executive Secretary of KADIPA. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain and the team. Thank you.
Yeah, this is 7.0. So you must be excited about this, definitely. So what is it with this KADIPA? What's different about this one?
A lot, Chamberlain. First of all, we've continued to innovate. As you're aware, last year we said that we're going to turn into a knowledge-based economy in Kaduna State. What we've done this year is, first of all, we've done what's known as, the metaverse. This economic and investment summit will be the first economic and investment summit of a subnational in Nigerian history that will be broadcasted on the metaverse. Metaverse is a virtual reality component of, the internet and so on. And then we've done what's known as augmented reality cards. You put your phone on the tag itself, click on the 3D image, it comes out, click on the program of events, you see more information and so on. So we've innovated as far as the virtual component is concerned. And then what we've done is, of course, the summit itself, we've expanded it for, an extra day. So we have one day with a business expo where we go into details across 4 different sectors: agriculture, technology, solid minerals, and infrastructure. We're going to go into in-depth discussions and so on. That will hold for about a day. This is just to have an intimate discussion between the state government and investors alike. Second day will just be commissionings, about 8 commissionings and so. And then the third day will be the main summit itself, and then we close with a gala night.
Let me ask, Chamberlain, before you continue. If you would do a recap, you've been in the saddle for 4 years now, but you've been in the system all the while. What are the things that you would say have been discovered or uncovered over the past 7 years that helped to bring us to where we are today?
First of all, I think it's visionary leadership at the very top, of His Excellency Governor Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Without that, you wouldn't be able to have all these policies and governance initiatives at the bottom. And then it gives a lot of confidence to investors. The political will is there. It's not just about the eloquence of speech, it's about the eloquence of action itself. So His Excellency has demonstrated that. He has put in a great team. The team itself has gone on to implement all these policies and initiatives we've discussed. I think from the first KADIPA, when people were talking about, we're going to bring in an OLAM and so on, a lot of people were like, this is impossible, none of that is going to happen. Today we've done like about 3, 4, 5 OLAMs and counting. So people have seen the action on ground, and I think that's, what has really changed everything we've done for the past 7 years.
That's not to say that there haven't been some risks that have been overcome over time,
Absolutely.
Challenges that investors would naturally be wary of.
Absolutely, a lot. The usual power, policies itself, security, and the rest. Risks are meant to be taken. We've taken a lot of risks as a state government. Even me being the head of an agency is a very big risk that the governor has taken. But it has panned out well. We've done quite a lot. We've achieved a lot, and I feel we'll do more even in the future.
You are here. I'm sorry, guys. You are here. So the risk is perhaps lower for you. Someone coming from Sweden to invest in Kaduna State with all of the news and everything that he said. You talked about power. Now there's also the issue of security. What are the assurances or safety nets for them?
Well, a lot. So like I mentioned, first of all, investors look at the political will itself. What is the political climate like? What is the leadership like? And then they begin to look at the policies in place. So what is your ease of doing business policies like? Have you automated, digitized? How easy is it for me to get my permits and my licenses? And then they look at things like power. What are the enabling infrastructure around where they're going to invest and so on. We've done quite a lot in terms of that. Anybody that has been around Kaduna for the past 7 years would attest to the transformation that we've seen. And then they begin to look at things like, security and so on, because people forget that people invest in Afghanistan and all these things, and it's just capex for them for security and so on. But we put those things in place and assure them. And, we've been having a lot of positive feedback.
When you spoke about those innovations that you've done, 6.0, COVID hit everybody hard, so things need to change.
Yeah.
And you spoke about the metaverse and the likes. First, will those be a regular feature? And who are you targeting? Because we know that's really slowly catching on here, the metaverse and the likes.
So, first of all, aside from the domestic investors, if you're really saying, look, Kaduna State is going to be marketed to the globe, you have to key into these global innovations. Everything we're doing here in Kaduna State is for us to become globally competitive. So if we're saying we're trying to become a knowledge-based economy, it's not just for you to be competitive in Nigeria. It's for us to be competitive globally, worldwide, compete with the Hong Kongs, compete with the Singapores, and so on. So, we've done a lot. This will be a basic feature for us. We have done it, we have done the trend setting, and we hope other states will follow.
Speaking of recaps, it's been said by His Excellency over the years that since KADIPA began, the state has attracted more FDIs than DDIs. So if you look back now, with the recap, what are the gains that Kaduna State has recouped in terms of job creation, in terms of revenue, and all the other prospects?
A lot. The return on investment in holding these economic and investment summit has been quite tremendous and phenomenal, to say the least. So with regards to IGR, I think from the first CAD Invest in about 2016, when this administration came on board in 2014, 2015, IGR was about, 13 billion, and now the last count in 2021 was about 52.8 billion. This is unprecedented in our history. Nobody has done this, and we feel, it has gone a long way in actually enabling us to provide the enabling infrastructure for these investments. So there's like a recursive loop where we're generating the income, the investments are coming in, doing more infrastructure and more, investments. Then with the likes of job creation, we have counted more than 75,000 jobs that have been created since the beginning of the administration and counting, because we haven't really sat down to do all the data capture and so on. And of course, impact to the community. We had a pre-summit event 2 days ago with concerning inclusive businesses. How much have these investors actually included the local communities around themselves? And we've seen a lot of investors doing well. So we say, poverty alleviation has been, achieved. Job creation has been achieved, and a lot of impact with regards to IGR.
Yeah. And in terms of employment, I wonder what the terms and conditions are, with the investors who have come into Kaduna State in terms of protecting the interests of, citizens. His Excellency would rather have citizens that not indigents to protect their interests, their welfare, and all of that.
You see, so what we're doing going forward is to begin to actually enact policies for these investors to be able to employ local communities. Now, if you're an investor and you're very smart, you would have to take the local community, because you don't want to go to war with the local community itself. You won't be able to operate, in a meaningful way. So what we're doing with this IBAN initiative, the inclusive business thing I mentioned, is if we accredit you and we say, look, Chamberlain Ventures, scores 100 out of 100. They have employed everybody in the local community. The next time they're going to invest or expand, they're going to get XYZ amount of waivers and incentives. This will encourage other investors to do the same. But it is in your interest as an investor to be able to employ the local community, for them to be able to own the investments going forward. They'll be the ones to protect your investment in the long run.
You quoted 75,000. Are those figures direct jobs or indirect jobs? Because indirect jobs, are temporary, but direct jobs are the long-lasting that will have an effect on the economy.
So we're in the process of disaggregating this data, but we've counted 75,000 direct and indirect jobs as we speak.
Well, I'm assuming that since you said global Chamberlain Ventures, you're assuming that it's a foreign business.
And maybe on the metaverse.
But quick one. We heard you just before we came on for this conversation talk about micro, small, and medium enterprises. I'm personally passionate about that, and I'm assuming that that's part of the jobs accounted for in this 75,000 thing. The challenge for me is that of sustainability of these businesses. You know very well that and the average lifespan of a small business is 5 years if it is not well managed. Is there anything government is doing to help them sustain themselves?
You see, what we have discovered in Kaduna State is as follows. We created what's known as the Enterprise Development Agency. That's kind of like a SMED on a state level. That's on the one hand. This agency will be able to focus on these MSMEs, provide them with the necessary policy advocacy, support, financing, access to market, and the likes. What we've discovered is, these MSMEs need new markets. Like I mentioned about them being globally competitive or service the local communities. These big investors we're bringing in do serve as the market for these small-scale, MSMEs. Yep. So we've seen smallholder farmers as well. Every time these guys are cashing out, becoming millionaires, selling to the likes of Olam and the rest. So that's where we're at now, and I think a lot is being done to support them.
So what are you doing to assuage the fears of investors? 7.0 will be the last of this government. Yeah. What are they telling you, and how you're telling them all will be well?
Yeah, naturally investors did come to us, early on in the year to say, look, there's going to be a change of administration, political instability. What are we doing to key in? So His Excellency has been gracious enough to always sit with investors and reassure them of his successor. Sometimes he's in a meeting with him right by his side to say, look, this deal is going on this way, and then Senator Obasani is right there and he's reassuring them, like, look, once I take over, there's no issues. So I think it's so far so good. The investors are confident. We really don't have any issues there.
Let me quickly follow up on MSMEs. For the foreign direct investors, the state promises a lot of incentives, to help them stabilize in terms of land documentation, licensing. I wonder if tax holidays is included. But for the MSMEs, they're the backbone of the economy. Is there any similar incentive for them, to also be able to stabilize and, in line with Ayo's question, sustain those businesses?
Absolutely. Look, you see, when you're doing reforms, right, essentially the reason why we're having so much success is you need to be a responsive government. So we hold the likes of all these quarterly businesses, social media, we've utilized a lot of that. All our policy initiatives do come from the MSMEs. So the fact that we're trying to domesticate the startup bill, we've done a ginger investment policy and strategy, all came from the MSMEs. This is not something that the big and large-scale investors are talking to us about. We're listening to the local investors right on ground because they're the ones that know the local problems. They're the ones that will be the ones to supply all these local raw materials to these big investors. So that's what we've done. We're continuing to do that. And then, these big investors you're talking about are, secondary to the idea of this MSME thing.
So what tax incentives are available for the MSMEs?
Tax incentives, it's on a case-by-case basis. It's at the discretion of the governor. So if, like we said, now we're trying to institutionalize these things, we've experimented over the years to say, look, if we make it uniform, we might be able to lose income. So it's a delicate balance. You want to increase IGR, you want to increase job creation, you want to do infrastructure. So over time, once you have experimented to see what kind of businesses, will qualify for these tax incentives, we then institutionalize it, create pass some laws and policies and see how it goes. But a lot of incentives for MSMEs.
Well, I guess the governor will have a lot more to say on that, so don't worry. Shoot us all on that one. Khalil is the Executive Secretary of KADIPA. Thank you for coming in and all the best.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
All right.